Hello, everyone. I'm your Cooking Without Looking TV show host, Alan Preston. Today's show will include something we've never done before. Along with Matt Schumacher's recipe for chicken parmesan, Matt will share with us some of his wine pairings and other tantalizing libations. Um, just as a reminder that all of us on the Cooking Without Looking TV show are blind or visually impaired. So let's get the show on the road. The Cooking Without Looking TV show, Chicken Parmesan and Wine Pairing Edition. All right, let's welcome Matt Schumacher. Welcome, Matt.
Hey there, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt.
Well, first I wanted to say thank you very much to have me on the show. Super really excited and kind of jittery at times because I'm a little nervous to make sure everything's okay. But being blind now for 4 years and adjusting as best I can with everything I've been given and with family and friends being able to help adapt me. Um, and it's been a real big growth. And one big growth is me. It's the Safety Positive Foundation with Amy SP Wilson has allowed me to grow extremely more in the blind community and getting me back into such things as cooking and getting a lot of positive mental aspect to get to it.
Well, Matt, that is absolutely wonderful. You have a little background in the alcohol industry too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I do. I would say kind of like, quote unquote nerd when it comes to that. I started enjoying and making beer a long time ago. Um, and from there, I vibrated into some friendships with people that were in the beer community, and I slowly migrated with them into even whiskey, bourbon whiskey, all over the world whiskeys, etc. And then I decided to move into the wine industry whenever my family at the time um, really enjoyed wines, but they found a company they got wines from that they really enjoyed, and some could actually drink them because they got certain headaches from certain wines. And the company that I was an independent scout and seller is the name of the company, and I was an independent wine consultant for them. After I did some research on the wines and really enjoyed how people could enjoy them in many ways of how they were made and where they selected their wines from around the world. And I got to the point that I really enjoyed how it was going. So I started going into becoming a wine specialist. And so right before I went blind, I was ready to take the level 2 exam, which it's very similar to becoming a sommelier, with a wine specialist learning how to make it from all over the world and everything about it.
I was going to ask you if you were an official sommelier.
No, unfortunately, after I wanted to become a wine specialist, I wanted to focus more on the making of it and the craftsmanship, because of making beer and then also understanding and um, knowing making whiskey and so on. And so I wanted to keep along that pathway because I felt that I understood it a lot better for what I wanted to do with it. But it's
Okay.
very similar as far as understanding wine of where it's from, what does it look like, what's in it, how old is it. I mean, it's a huge category. Because of my exam, for instance, I think I had 6 or 7 books that were as thick as could be, studying all kinds of things regarding wine around the world and what's about it. And so I really enjoyed it from doing so. It's just a lot to gain. And being a sommelier is a really hard exam. And so I thought about doing that as well whenever I was done becoming a specialist level 2.
Well, you're still young. You have time.
Yeah, I wanted to look more into it. The problem with getting certified is that you need to be able to see the wine.
Sure.
And so to be able to see at the age of what might be, what type it is, in the general sense, to be able to pass the test. And so it'll be a time to see what is transpired by any abilities I might have to have people maybe take it with me or an accessibility level exam.
Well, they got an awful lot of technology now that might be able to help you out too.
Oh yeah, time will tell. There's so much now.
Anyway, Matt, tell us a little
Yes.
bit about this recipe that you're going to prepare.
Well, today we're gonna be making chicken parmigiana, and it's the same exact wording as chicken parmesan. And the word is parmigiana is from Parm, Italy. And the way it comes out. And I really enjoy the recipe because it's an easy one in a relative sense once you get used to it that you can make for family, friends, on holidays, events, or even just by yourself cooking and you want something fun. Um, a lot of good ingredients to learn as you put things together. And as you do things, you put it together as you wish to and what you enjoy. And I really enjoy the ability to do so.
Well, Matt, that sounds absolutely great. So why don't you show us how it's done?
Okay. Well, give me 1 second. I need to pop out for just a quick second. I need to get my oven turned on. So if you give me 2 seconds, I'm going to do a step out real quick. Is that okay?
2 seconds. Sure. Can you still hear us and answer questions?
Yes, just give me 1 minute here as I will be speaking.
Okay. Well, you told us the difference between chicken parmesan and chicken parmigiana.
Yep.
And let's see. And parmigiana, you might assume the recipe is Italian.
Yes, and it's actually Italian American because you typically will not find chicken parmesan in Italy. Italy is basically
Really?
going to be your eggplant parmesan. And so from that point, you'll be able to find specific notifications of your flavors and what people tell you. Um, Usually on the Northeast Coastern region from the Italian American realm.
Oh, interesting. That's kind of like they don't serve Chinese food in China. They only serve it in America.
Oh yeah, well, Chinese American food, Italian American food, all kinds of fun
Yes,
activities.
and it's all good.
Oh yes, it's absolutely amazing. And then so what I'm going to really quick have is we'll have the um, oven here in a minute. We're going to turn it on to a broil state um, because on the broil on the oven, it needs to set up and so that way you're warmed up, ready to go when the so everything's good to go. So starting off, what I'm going to do is pull over the smashing of the chicken on the chicken breast to make sure that it's flat enough to be able to sear nicely in the stove. So I'm going to bring over my meat if I can find it. I have it over here and I'm going to get to it here. Start with my pot, then I'm going to explain about smashing and beating around on it. Looking over here, grab my other piece of chicken. Sorry, being blind and trying to work with a lot of stuff around, I do not have any sight at all. So you'll have to
You
just
are
give me a
totally
minute.
blind, eh?
Yep, completely blind. So
Interesting.
doing
This is
things
your
quick
home
and
kitchen
easy.
you're in?
Yes, I'm very grateful that I live with my parents, and so I get to use their kitchen.
Ah, that's nice. Being familiar with your kitchen, I think, is one of the biggest things, knowing where everything is.
Oh, absolutely.
I
And so
spend
what?
so much time looking for things.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's definitely one that you're saying, where did I put that? Where did it go? So what I'm going to do first is get out the chicken here, and I started already by putting it inside the bag, and I went with smaller pieces of chicken today, the chicken breasts, to make sure that it is thin enough because I'm going to beat it flat within about a half inch, a little more. And so, what I'm going to
Yes.
do is smash this down flat enough to make sure it will not undercook whenever I'm doing the process of it. And so, whenever you cook a piece of chicken, like if you're making for chicken parmesan, you need to make sure of how you would put it together. If the chicken breast is really thick and a really big one, you want to cut it in half. And then from that point, I'm going to try to put up for those to be able to kind of demonstrate is that your long ways is where you'd cut it top to bottom in half if you wanted to. And that way it would make it smaller pieces, not some giant piece of chicken. But also, you can also, on a thicker cut, you can cut at a diagonal against it because the grain of the meat is running long ways. That means if you put a bunch of string together and run them long ways here, it runs smooth together with a bunch of string. But if you cut across it, you would cut the string in half. That's
Yeah.
against the grain, and that way you can kind of feel it a little ridges, and that will help break up the meat itself and help it become more tender. So,
By cutting across the grain?
yep, if you cut across the grain, just little small little slices here on
fuck's
it.
sakes.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Hello?
Somebody's cut in on us somehow or other, I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
they muted now.
Okay.
oh, okay. Well, when you cut it's just like if you cook steak or anything else to make it more tender. But on the chicken, for instance, if you cut against the grain at a diagonal or such, just small little slices of just to open it up a little bit. Don't cut through, just a little slices on top of it. And that way, when you mash it or flatten it out, you're going to help it become more tender and break apart a little bit in the inside. So what I've done with that, and then now I'm going to lay it flat on a flat surface on with the ability to use what I'm choosing is this big heavy pan because it's a quick, easy, big thing to just smash it down real quick and get things flat. You can use a rolling pin, you can use a meat hammer. If you've got a strong fist, you can punch it if you want to.
I have an old rubber mallet from when I was fixing cars a million years ago.
Oh,
I
yeah.
did clean it up real nice first. I'm curious, when you're flattening this out, do you put the skin side up or the skin side down when you hammer on it?
Well, you can pull the skin off, but if you choose to keep it on there, you can probably get a little bit better effort if you put skin down. And so that way on top, it's not just mashing around on top of it. But I like it to get a skinless and boneless because it's a lot easier and quicker to cook up. And that way you trim it up nicely, get rid of some of the gunk on it or any loose pieces that are just itty bitty. You can trim it up nice or whatever you wish to. And I like it because of the bone in, it's going to take a lot longer to cook it. And so having a chicken breast with no bones, no skin on it,
Skinless, boneless is the way to go. Yeah,
oh, yes.
I agree too. Yeah.
So really good smacks. And now I am pretty much,
Now you were saying about a half an inch thick. That's about the thickness of your fingers.
uh, relatively on mine, I got bigger hands, but relatively within an inch or within the width of your finger,
Yeah.
give you enough of it. So that way, if it's too thick and you do what I'm cooking, it will take a lot longer to do so. And you might unfortunately come up where it's going to take you a lot longer, or if you don't pay attention to the temperature, you're going to have it undercooked and it's going to be that you're just barely enough done. And that's something we don't want. So now I'm
not with chicken, especially.
oh no, absolutely. So I'm going to put my beating hammer over here away. And what I'm going to do now is grab my paper towels because the next step is I want to dry the chicken off. And the reason I want to dry it, meaning I'm going to take the paper towels I have and I'm going to smash each side of them on each side of the chicken. And I want to do this because you want to make sure your chicken is dry and not moisture at all, because if it's moisture at all, the flour, the breading, and all that's going to fall off. And so that's something you do not want. I'm going to put this out of the way. There's a table there.
So now that's why I can't get the breading to stick to my chicken parm.
Yep.
Or the other chicken I bred. Yeah.
And yep,
You
that's
gotta keep it
exactly it.
dry.
And that's another good tip trick I'll throw in there for cooking is if you're cooking or if you're cooking anything for searing or anything with oils or whichever, you need to make sure the heat is able to penetrate the meat, and moisture is a barrier between heat and the heat source, or excuse me, the heat and the meat. So you need to make sure you pay very close attention to that when it comes up. So now what I'm going to do is get the rest of the there we go. Get the rest of the paper towel off of the chicken because sometimes it really loves to stick. So there we have that. I'm going to get my other plate and I'm going to put it onto the plate when I'm finished with it. So I'm going to put this here out of the way real quick. And now what I'm going to do is to take salt and pepper very lightly on each side of the chicken to start with. And the reason I want to do that is it adds a little more flavor to the chicken as a base. And so that way it has layers of flavor, not just I have some layers of seasoning on top and that's it. So put a little salt on one side, a little bit of pepper. You're going to get a good smash in there. And I'm
You
going
like the
to,
smashed chicken.
oh yeah, smash the chicken. Again, more salt, a little more pepper. And again, you put as much as you want to on it. That's your choice. Again, your choice. So I'm going to smash it one more time with a little leftovers. But now, shake it up a little bit. I'm going to stick it into the flour, which trying to make sure I have the flours right here. So the first step is to flour it. And remember, you gotta make sure it's moist, is gone. Moisture is gone. So we're gonna smash it in here around, and you want to make sure there is no open feeling of chicken that's a little bit moist at all. Any where you don't feel flour in a little spot, you want to make sure everything is floured because that's what the egg is going to adhere to and not just have issues and everything. So now, when I am done, I'm going to put this into my little bowl with a whisked up or broken up egg. And you want to dredge it through, slide it around, get it all coated up and nice.
Your dry chicken, you're dredging it through the egg, the whole egg or the egg white?
The whole egg. You can use the egg white if you wish to, but the whole egg is going to be a lot better if you use the whole process of the egg. The
You
whole
just
setup.
beat it up, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Beat it up, and I like to whisk it to really get that flavor around.
Yeah.
To really get that around. And so now, final stage here is I've got my Italian breading that is mixed with grated Parmesan Reggiano. And the reason I say Parmesan Reggiano, it's got more of a salty, but a little more bite to it, a little more rich flavor. And on the Parmesan Reggiano, it has to be made. I think there's 4 places in Italy it has to be made to be called Reggiano. And so you also may find that you see regular Parmesan everywhere. And there's nothing wrong with it. If it's grated, that's fine, but it's not real Parmesan Reggiano, which is going to give you more rich flavor. Aging on it, sometimes they use age 10 months, 12 months, even up to 15 or so. But to really get that good note, this one is at 24 months old, so 2 years aged. And they go up from there and have different names of different levels of aging that they do and call them different names.
Almost
So
like wine.
exactly, just like wine. Now, I don't know if they could be aging, 25, 30 years old for wine compared to the cheese, but you never know. But what I do know at this point is that I want to make sure my breading is smashed all around it. When I say breading, like a panko breading or any other breaded things that you can make and blend up to make real fine breading. And the reason I want to add the cheese to it is to make sure that it helps, give it a good rich flavor of chicken and cheese together, but also to make sure that it will help brown the chicken up as it's slowly cooking up and grill and searing on the pan. And the reason you want that is to make sure that it blends together and gives you that awesome texture. So it's got the cheese built into it, make a nice crust. And then you also have the ability that it's going to help sear and stick to the chicken. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the chicken over here because you really want it to rest for 10 to 15 minutes. So that way you let the chicken adhere well to the pieces on it, all the crumbs and seasonings. But real quick, I'm going to rinse my hands off because I do have an already prepped up for one that's been resting long enough to get us ready to start cooking.
Okay.
And so let me rinse my hands off real quick because you're going to get that gooey crustiness on your hands from when you're mixing things around. Dry my hand off real quick on my little towel here.
Yes.
So now,
I spend a lot of time washing my hands.
oh yes. So as my chicken is resting, what I want to make sure I do is go to the next stages as part of the meal because chicken parmigiana has sauce with it as well as a side dish you can put as noodles or pasta. And so what I like to do on my sauce is it's been slowly cooking here 20 to 30 minutes to really get going. And I'm going to give it a quick stir because I like to use the San Marzano Roma tomatoes and how they cook up. I like them be the whole ones along with a can of diced tomatoes to give you that more rustic feel. So you're going to get instead of a smooth sauce, you're going to have a little more chunkiness to it.
Where do you find these specific kinds of tomatoes like that?
You can find these tomatoes and everything at any store that you have. Excuse me, like um, you might be able to find them for sure at Walmart or Target, I'm thinking. But any local grocery store, produce stores that you have that are kind of like a Save a Lot or I can't remember. I'm trying to think of like Hy-Vee or any of those larger supermarket type things, type grocery stores that you can find things at.
Matt,
Um,
Alan, we have a question over here from Flo.
yeah.
Yes, Flo, your
Flo,
question? Yes.
Okay, I had to figure out how to mute. Max, what do you use the panko Italian breadcrumbs or just the plain regular Italian breadcrumbs?
I've used panko, and the ones I also use right
Yeah.
now are, I think, just a local store brand one that's around the local area around here where I live and around St.
Yeah.
Louis. It's whatever you choose to use. I think they all taste very similar with the
Yeah.
Italian seasoning already in them. Now, if you
That's
choose one
right.
without the Italian seasoning, obviously you add whatever you wish
Correct.
to it. But
Yeah,
yes,
I tend to myself also because I'm a cook as well, and I
okay.
tend to only use panko breadcrumbs on most everything I fry or bake or
Yeah.
whatever. Thank
Yep.
you.
No, thank you. But yes, you find this, you can go and ask wherever you're going to get your stuff from and ask them Italian breading or
Yeah.
any kind of a breading like panko and see what they have. And you could try one that's not panko or try the next one it's another brand and so on.
Yeah,
And you find what works for you.
that's right.
So whichever works.
That's
But for the breading,
right. Thank you.
you're welcome. And
Yeah,
now,
what is
go
the
ahead, I'm
difference
sorry.
between panko breadcrumbs and just regular breadcrumbs?
Well, specifically with the panko that I remember being able to see that they're really fine grated and really crumbed up and really small fine crumbs, and so that way they stick to things very very easily because they're minced up, I guess the way we would say it. But panko being a bread, it's a brand. um if I remember correctly, it's the brand, but the style of it, you can find it where uh if I remember, I believe it's kind of like a Japanese style breading where the design came
Yes,
from, I think.
you are right. It's a Japanese style breadcrumb, and they
Yeah.
are bit bigger than regular breadcrumbs.
Yeah. They are panko is the Japanese I believe the brand of it. I mean, I can't remember. With been so many years since I've used that breading, I just grab whatever's on the shelf whenever I'm allowed to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would do with it and let it kind of rest in.
Okay.
And so right now for my sauce that's slowly been going is um I have San Marzano tomatoes and I squish them up. And Roma tomatoes are what they are. And Roma's got such a rich, good flavor for Italian sauce. Any kind of Italian seasonings or anything with the Roma tomatoes. Also add the flavor, what you choose: salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion flakes. Also add Italian seasoning, basil, oregano, whatever you wish. And what I have here that I'm also going to be using to top off the final results of the chicken after the oven part is freeze dried basil here that I got. It was interesting they had it there, and I thought I'd try it. And it's freeze dried basil leaves that after you're done with it, you put it back in the freezer or the fridge, excuse me. And it's got a real rich seasoning. Now, unfortunately, fresh basil is not able to be gotten right now in my region because of the season. For outdoor growing and everything. And so a fresh basil is going to be so much more in richness with the moisture inside of it because all the oil's in it. And so that would be something I prefer to use, but I am able to use what I'm able to get. I mean, fresh seasonings are amazing to use. You cut them all up and do the whole process, but that takes a lot longer. Now, with what I've done here is flavor to my taste and get a little richness on the to the sauce itself because I wanted a little zestiness to it, a little Italian spice, or you can make it bland, just a nice base tomato sauce. I like the more chunky style because I prefer not to have it running off of the chicken. I want it to soak up to the top of it because of what it's being put together with. Now, on my pasta, I decided to use this penne pasta. Penne being like a muscatoli noodle cylinder, or excuse me, cylindrical, the slight edging on them where they got the ribs around them. I like that instead of spaghetti, for instance, is because spaghetti takes a lot to really stir up and have sauce everywhere and things like that. In my mind, I use the penne because you can do quick pokes with a fork and get some pieces in your mouth along with eating on your chicken parmesan. And also,
That is important.
yes, it is. Oh, and also make sure on your pasta or when you're putting your pasta together, keep a little bit of your pasta water out after you have drained it off into this to the strainer, and keep a little bit of the water in with the pasta because when you put your sauce onto and kind of shake it around a little bit, that sauce will stick to your pasta. And so if you have questions on that part, I know I'm kind of skipping around here and there. I'm trying to remember things. But
Lots
yeah,
of
the
little
pasta.
tips. Yeah, very good little tips.
But yeah, after you can do a nice seasoning on the pasta when you're done on top, like an Italian parsley has a really good citrus zest to it. So you can get some fresh Italian parsley or just regular parsley, kind of sprinkle on top, make it pretty, but also has a good flavor. Now, here, I'm going to go ahead and remove some of the things I have up here. So I have my flour. I'm making room for my next step will be my pan that I'll be using. So I'm going to put some things up out of the way. And
Knowing your kitchen is very important.
yes, it is. I've been wandering around my kitchen for the past week and a half doing some test runs and things in here to remember my brain and cooking it. Now, what I'm going to do next is I need to get my pan warmed up. So I'm feeling it right now, and I'm going to turn it off just for a second because I've had it warm. And so what I'm going to do is turn it back on and turn it to a medium heat from where I want it. So I got it here, I'm going to turn it around to right about there. So I'm going to be right around medium low. So I'm going to let that cool down a little bit because it's hot. But what I want it warm for ahead of time is so that way when I put the oil in it, it's going to be enough to cook the oil quickly and get it warmed up. And so that way when you put your chicken parmesan in it, it's going to start into the searing process, not slowly getting there and doing a longer step. So I'm going to let it cool.
Well, I guess it depends on your stove as to how long it takes to heat the pan up, right?
Yes, sir, it does. I'm sorry about that. Yes.
Are you cooking with gas or electric?
This is electric flat top.
Yeah.
And so
I got too. I prefer gas, but
number one is gas for me. I've been able to use gas on my previous home, and it was absolutely amazing and beyond the level of anything I've ever tried for a coil stove or an electric flat top. Now I will say I was lucky to have somebody help me with measuring the hotness of my stove here. And on full high power of the big burner setup, it measured over 950 degrees. And that was a lot hotter than I ever thought. And so I know based upon that of where I need to go with the flavor of the intensity of the heat. So instead of being my medium like I normally would, this stove here cooks a lot higher. And so I backed it down to like a medium low. So that way it really got where I needed it to be. So now I'm going to add in my oils. And to start with, I'm going to add a mix of things today because oils have a flash point or a smoking point, and it basically burns the oil. Just like if you put butter in the pan, it'll sear quickly and melt down, but eventually it gets so fast it burns up and gets a dark brown look to it, real dark, and it burns and adds an off flavor to it. Yes. So I'm going to start with vegetable oil because vegetable oil has a higher burn point to my second oil, which is going to be olive oil. So I'm going to pour my oil in on my first part, my veggie oil. And next, I'm going to go ahead and drizzle in probably a quarter cup at most of olive oil.
How are you measuring that?
Well, the first thing I did was in my, backing up, in my vegetable oil, I went ahead and added the oil and poured it into a measuring cup. And it was about a third of a cup or half of a cup of vegetable oil that I put together.
You pre-measured that one, right?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I did pre-measure that one. And then the
Okay.
same for the olive oil. I know about how much is in here based upon
Oh,
what I
okay,
filled
it's
it with
been
yesterday
pre-measured.
because
I
it was
didn't know
empty.
that. Okay.
Yep. So it
Good
was empty.
idea.
Yeah. So now I'm going to add in the olive oil there because olive oil, you want that rich flavor of the olive oil to add to the chicken parmesan, being the Italian part with how rich it is. And you mix them together because it raises up the smoke point and you still get that flavor of the olive oil. So that's a really big thing. So now I'm going
Higher
to,
smoking point, yes.
yes. And so now what I'm going to do is pull my one pan over that I'll be using it for the oven and along with my tongs. And so this pan here that I'm putting is this a flat top pan that's going to be going into the oven. But for now, I'm going to put it right next to the stove on my left-hand side so I can put it directly in there.
It's
And so,
important to have a pan that you can also put in the oven to make this.
yes, so when you put it in your oven, you definitely want a good pan that will allow the heat to process into the chicken parmesan, but also to make sure that it doesn't drip everywhere. And so in case you have a runny one, so maybe one that has a little edging to it, cookie sheet or something like that. And so what I have here is the top actually a sheet that's actually the top of an older 9 by 13 metal pan, metal
Okay.
cooking pan for cakes and stuff. And so what I use it for is because it's got a nice holder on the side and it's also got a nice rim around it. And it's old metal one, but it's just a flat, perfect surface to put on in the oven. So
Okay.
now I'm going to go ahead and as I'm putting this together, what I want to do is see when the oil is ready. So I'm going to grab a little snivelly off of the chicken itself of the breading, and I have to listen and hear it if it starts searing up. Like it's getting there now because I can hear a little bit of sizzling to it, and that helps as a big trick. So instead of using a electronic reader or thermostat reader, or excuse me, an electric talking thermostat temperature gauge. Yeah, a thermometer, not a thermostat. Um,
Yes.
so that'll work. And another way that you can test out actually is before you put in your oil, if you have your pan on and you want to know if it's hot yet, you take a couple drizzles of water and you splash them into the pan and you're going to hear them sear. And so on my previous recipe and stuff, I talked about cooking the steak is you want that pan so hot, the water almost turns into a bubble and slides around. It doesn't actually burn off quickly and sear off. Um, and so the same with this is I don't want it that hot. So I want to make sure it's able to be cooked up at a temperature that's not going to burn it.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do now is take where'd my chicken go? I just had it. Okay, here's the one I've been resting. So now what I'm going to use is my tongs, and I'm going to try to make sure I do my best to um, put it in and kind of slide it sideways or backwards so you don't get splashed up with the grease. So again, I'm going to do a little breading testing, and it sounds pretty good. So I'm going
Kind of
to,
a sound oriented thing, right?
yep, yeah,
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
listening. And so I'm going to let it turn up just a tad on the temperature. I'm going to bump it up to a little bit higher, maybe like a little itty bitty turn. And so if your knob has like numbers on it, 1 through 8 or something, I was about a 2.5, I think, and I just bumped it up to almost a 3, just a little bit more heat
Just a
to it.
little more. Okay.
So now, very carefully, I'm going to put in there we go, slide it around a little bit. And now I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes with echo. So echo, set timer for 2 minutes. And I don't want to move it for those 2 minutes because the more I move it around and everything, that breading might be becoming more and more brittle and sliding off. And so I want to do my best to try to keep it this way. For what has worked for me and recipes I found and things I've tried and mixed around with, I find this to make a really good, nice crust to your chicken parmesan. As it's slowly good. So I'm going to wait here for 2 minutes. And as that's cooking, I'm going to come back here and I want to check out my sauce. And I'm going to come in and get a taste on the flavor of it. Make sure I don't burn my hand off here. Here we go. Perfect. And my sauce has got a really good temp on it, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. along with my noodles are been resting here as I cook them up.
Since you've lost your eyesight, you burned your fingers a few times cooking?
Burn, cut. Yep.
Yeah,
Might have actually
okay.
had to sew one back on, I think. Now,
We
as
all
I'm
do.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I
Alan?
just, we all end up getting little burns and cuts here and there. But the truth
yeah, we
is that you can really tell fairly easy where the hot stuff is.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Now,
once you get used to cutting, you can usually cut stuff without getting fingers in.
yeah, definitely practice a lot, but make sure you have a super duper sharp knife. A dull knife is going to cause more cuts. So you
That's
want to have a
right.
That's
super
right.
sharp knife.
Yes.
Max is right. Most definitely.
And so what I like is, I mean, there's a lot of extra things out that I did a lot with the sharpening knives is learning how to do it is whenever you have a knife, after you use it, you never really want to use it at all in glass or metal to cut anything.
No, no.
Um,
I like wood, but I think plastic's a little cleaner.
wood is the best you can use for the ability to keep the knife smooth and cut through everything you're doing quickly, in my opinion, what I've done in the past. Echo stop. So now I'm going to turn. Echo stop. I'm going to flip it over, make sure it's flat and everything's good, slide it around. Echo set timer for 2 minutes. Now this will be my next turn because at this point, after this is done, I'm going to put it onto my tray and get to the next step, which I'll get there in a minute.
Max, this is Flo. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you use a talking meat thermometer?
Yes, I actually have one here
Okay.
that I brought out because I wanted to use it.
Yeah,
Check
I
my
have one
temperature.
too. I give them to people. I give them to people for presents.
They are
Christmas cards.
amazing. And I have used a couple that are really, really nice, but for the talking ones, and they're nice, and I have not used them yet. But the ones I've gotten, I think it was on Amazon for like $12, 15
Yes.
bucks, and it's not super great. It rattles around and everything, but it does the job enough. So now what I'm going to do is turn it on. And for now, I'm going to stab it and let it warm up enough. Okay, I'm going to try that again because I couldn't hardly hear it.
Uh-oh, battery's getting low?
Hold on. Yeah, it might be dead. Or sometimes it gets to be a pain in the butt. Okay, here we go. Okay, 144 is the first number. It's temperamental. Yeah, it's about 144, 145, and as it's slowly going to get there, it's going to warm up more.
What's it
Echo
supposed to
stop.
be? Is it 165 for chicken?
Yes, sir. 165 is the minimum. That's where you want it to be, or else you're going to get some possible nastiness. Most likely possible nastiness. Don't even
Matt,
pretend.
Matt, Erica has a question for you.
Yes, Erica.
Hey everybody. Matt, I wanted to ask if would you ever add maybe a spoonful of sugar to your sauce? And then when you rested your chicken, does it need to rest on the kitchen counter?
Okay, sorry. Yep, you know what? I'm sorry, I forgot to add that about sugar. Whenever you're making your sauce, you have a lot of acidity with your sauce. So your sugar will help balance it out. And so you want to kind of do a little bit of sugar and a little bit of salt and kind of help neutralize things out because of the tomatoes and everything. So
Mhm.
Erica, thank you for reminding me on that part.
That's interesting.
And
No
then for
problem.
resting, now that I'm going to go ahead and pull it off, I'm going to rest it here on the counter. So I'm going to turn off my stove. And then I'm going to grab my tongs, I'm gonna come over here with my plate or sheet. Okay, I'm gonna pick it up and very carefully let some of the oil drain off of it.
You want to do that so you don't break the breading off, right?
That's correct. Now I'm gonna see if I'm gonna put it here for a second just to let it kind of rest for a minute and see if I can. Yeah, it's got a good little crunch to it. Just kind of tapping on the top of it and kind of hearing. And what I'm going to now is take a pause because, of course, whenever you're having a wonderful chicken parmesan, what is even better than just having a nice glass of wine with it? And so, of course, I love drinking wine. What I wanted to do today is add in one of my good wine types that would go well with a chicken parmesan or any other chicken, turkey, duck, anything you want to make for the holidays. And this is a wine from Willamette Valley, or excuse me, Willamette Valley in Oregon, Willamette County Valley in Oregon. And the brand is Conte de la Terre. And I got this one specifically when I was working as an independent wine consultant, because to me, this is one of the best Pinot Noirs I've ever had. And so I love it. And so I got a bottle of Pinot Noir. And the reason Pinot Noir works really good, especially when you're having a red sauce, is because it'll has a little more acidity with the fruits. And so it'll balance back out the sweetness and everything you end up with your sauce and cheese and chicken. And so it's a neutralized flavor, or excuse me, not a neutralized flavor. So that way, if everything blends together, it's kind of mellows together and it's kind of rough as far as you don't have that vibrant spring off of everything. And so the Pinot Noir, I think, and the way the fruit flavors in it, strawberries, cranberries, some sweeter cherries, notes of some oakiness, depending on how things go with it, depending on the season type of variants in it, and so on. And so that one is a really good one to use whenever you're talking about how to serve a wine with chicken, for example, of what we're doing. And I have opened this bottle, and it's been open for over 20 minutes. And the reason I want to let it open, it allows it to breathe and open up. And so when you're doing so, it's just like if I open it up fresh and I'm pouring it right in and drinking it, it doesn't allow it to open up and breathe. And not just, it has a nose and breathes on its own, but the oxidation, everything inside of it and all the flavor profiles will start warming it up. So I'm going to go ahead and pour myself right now in my glass. And about a third of the way at most, because that's really going to allow you to breathe a lot more. Because, yeah, you can fill your glass all the way up and have it a full glass. But if you decide to do things a little differently by letting it breathe and then giving yourself about a fourth or a third for your first run, and then you're able to swirl it around in your glass and let it touch more of the area in the glass itself, which A, is going to open it up more. B, is going to allow you to let it breathe into your glass and the flavors on the glass itself. But also you can tell if you're able to see it or not. You can see the alcohol level on the glass, the percentage. So if you're able to see if it's a red wine or a white wine, as you swirl it around, and you can see the wine dripping down the side of the inside of the glass. And if it's a real quick runoff, it's got a lower alcohol point. But if it's a very slow process and it looks like strings all over your wine glass, that's a higher alcohol content on your wine. So now what I'm going to do
I never knew that.
Yeah, I never knew that either. When I started figuring it out, I was like, oh, you're right.
Something new. I could tell my sister. I'll beat her to something.
I'll have to watch that. I have a little bit of eyesight. I don't know if I'll be able to see that or not, but I will certainly look for it.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna take a little sip of it now just because I wanted to sip.
Matt, this is Nancy. I have one question. Like,
Yeah.
if people don't like a Pinot Noir, like would a good Sauvignon Blanc with the fruits of grapefruit, like notes of grapefruit and oranges work also?
Yes, if you like a white wines, more specifically, yes, there's plenty of white wines as well. You get a little more of the fruity sip, like a dry Riesling, a Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio, or if you're in France, it's called a Pinot Gris, Gris. Those are going to be different flavor profiles depending on how, what the brand is, what type of wine that is specifically. Also looking at what the wine is made of as well, because if it says Pinot Grigio on it, does not mean it's only Pinot Grigio. you might find that in the United States, as well as other places in Europe, that you're going to find wines that at a minimum recorded, or excuse me, a minimum requirement is that some areas it's got to be at least 75% of the main part to be called a Pinot Grigio, for instance, or it has to be 85, or it has to be 95 all over the United States as well in Europe. So that might alter the flavor a bit. But again, it comes down to what do you enjoy with it? Do you want to try it out? Try it. If you're like, you know what, this is awesome, drink it. If you're like, no, this doesn't work out, then don't drink it. But no matter
Right.
what, you enjoy what you wish to enjoy.
Right. I tend to like the Pinot Noirs and the red blends with some meats, but then I like the Sauvignon Blancs or some of the Pinot Gris with chicken too, but depending on what they're made out of.
Oh yeah, and I tell you what, when I'm done getting this stuff out, I have a huge line of all kinds of wines to talk about, and ones you typically would not even know about, along with other drinks that you can have. Now, when Alan said libations, libations is actually a base word of Greek or Roman about deities, and so you'd give offers and sacrifice offering, excuse me, of wine or any other alcoholic beverage, but typically wine, and that would be what is considered a libation to that level.
Okay.
That's where that came from.
So now what I'm gonna do is very carefully turn my chicken around. And what I want to do now is I'm gonna add a little sauce. And so when I add my sauce, I don't want to drip it all over. And so I'll explain that in just a second. Let me not burn my hand all the way off here. So now I'm going to spin a little sauce here. I'm going to very carefully try not to burn my hand off because it's super hot. And I burned my hand. And I put a little sauce on there because I don't want to put too much because you're not having marinara chicken or marinara cheese chicken. You're having chicken Parmesan. So you don't want to overpower with so much sauce unless that's the way you like it to go. Next, I'm going
I
to
agree.
use,
It makes it too wet.
yep, you don't want it to make it too wet because it soaks it in.
That's
And
right.
so next, what I have is I'm going to get my cheese. So starting off, you can put all kinds of cheeses on it. And what I prefer, get a nice flavor. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call coming and to listen to it for a minute, unfortunately. And so what I'm going to do, mix I have is the grated Parmesan Reggiano, the spring. But I also remembered you don't want to put too much on it that it's going to drill and everything else, but you want it really good in the center because the grated mozzarella or the Parmesan is really good. So on this one, I'm going to add a little bit because it's a lighter grating that I did, a really fine grating. But the Parmesan I like on adding to a second part is because it's chicken Parmesan. So not only do you get the Parmesan flavoring within the actual breading, but you also get it on the top. And so on top of that, you can also add provolone to it. You can add Romano, which is good. I'm going to actually add some more mozzarella in my case here because mozzarella is a big one to use, a very great cheese to use as it melts. And so now what I'm going to do is very carefully put one here, and I'm going to put another one on it. I'm feeling it. And so I'll put it on here just enough because, again, I don't want it to drip all over the place. Because if I drip it, it's going to, again, overpower and melt everywhere and stick to your pan. I unfortunately did one last night that I tried it out and did something, and it actually melted the cheese. Oh, sorry. It melted the cheese onto the actual pan where I had to scrape it off of the pan. And so much cheese on a trial. And I learned very quickly on that one, just to try things out on it. And so now I'm going to get ready to go to my oven. So on my oven, oh, actually, sorry, pause. I messed up. I skipped a step. I forgot that I'm going to actually add some more basil to it. And I need to find my little basil container here. I have it. Get some
All these ingredients are included in your recipe that we can find at the end of the online.
Yep.
Without cooking, without looking at the site.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And everything
Okay.
that's there, you can use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little basil and I'm going to very lightly sprinkle some on. And that way, it soaks into it, adds a great flavor to it. And also, if you wanted to, a little sprinkle of pepper on it if you wanted to, or so on.
Mhm.
So now I'm going to get my space protection heat glove. Yeah, I did. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to very carefully put it into the oven. And so now on my oven, it's on broil. Hold on a second. I gotta here or there, and I'm gonna pull out the middle rack, because if you put it in the middle rack and it's on broil, it allows you more leeway to make sure you don't burn everything. And so now it's on broil. I'm gonna slide it in there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and set my echo alarm for 1 minute and 40 seconds. Echo, set timer for 1 minute, 40 seconds.
1 minute and 40 seconds, starting now.
And so the reason I wanted 140 so 2 minutes or so is I wanted to start getting to where the cheese is bubbly. And also any extra heat that's needed to warm the chicken up even more will wrap around the chicken inside of the oven. And so that'll help raise the temperature a little more to maintain juiciness, to where it's not overcooking it.
That
And that's
minute
why I
and
use
40
little.
second, is that kind of a trial and error thing, or how did you come up with that?
Well, whenever you're mashing your chicken down to about a half inch, it's going to cook really quickly, enough to where it's safe. And so searing it for 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 seconds on each side in the on the stove, on
Yeah,
the searing of it, and then putting it with, you top it with the sauce and the cheese and everything. So it helps keep it kind of warming up. But then once you stick it in the oven and do the broil, um, as the heat's already on, in the 1 minute, 30 seconds to 2 minute time frame, is going to start allowing the chicken to continue to cook, but also the cheese to start bubbly melting, to where you get that little bubbly state on the cheese. And what I have done through trial and error with family and friends to eyeball it and let me know is
ah,
you find that it starts to brown a little bit. The edging gets a little brown to it, where it starts to toughen up a little bit. But I know that some of my family members like it really brown, because then it turns into like a cheese wafer. Other ones don't like it browning at all. So it just depends on how you wish to cook it. But I found 1.5 to 2 minutes is typically about where it is good to go.
so why does my chicken sometimes get rubbery tasting?
Rubbery is when it overcooks. It
Oh,
overcooks.
okay.
Okay, here's our pull. But yeah, if it overcooks, it turns rubbery. Or if it's undercooked too. Well, let me rephrase the rubbery part, but also if it's undercooked, it can be rubbery for sure, because then it's no good. Um, so it's kind of a hit and miss on both ends of it. Echo, stop.
Okay, just a matter of experimenting and knowing your own stove and oven.
Yep. It's yeah, a lot of trial and error. And we're
Yeah,
good.
that's why, and a meat thermometer is very important.
Absolutely. Meat thermometers are very, very important, unless you're cooking something that you think and know very much about, that you're understood about everything with the temperatures and everything and what it does to a time. However, everything is different.
That's
Your
right.
atmosphere of the elevation of where you live is different. Your elevation, if I
Even
could say,
people's ovens.
where are we at here? Oh, there we go. That's
Elevation will make that big a difference in baking. I know it does when you're boiling things,
yeah. And
but
baking and
it
everything,
also
it can
does
make a
with
difference.
baking too, eh?
Yes.
Yep, it can make a difference. So
Interesting.
now I put my sheet right here onto the oh, I gotta keep that glove on. I put it onto the stove, and I'm gonna grab a plate to put it onto and let it rest up here for a second. So here's that. I'm gonna grab my spatula, and I'm going to put it onto my plate and get to the next stage, which would be me getting able to put the pasta on it as well. So there's that. Wasn't able to get too much out because I don't have enough space to put everything all out in order. So it's a process that you go through to find out what works best for you. So now, very carefully, very lightly, There's a slight sticky, so I know the cheese definitely got in there. So I'm going to put it here very carefully. Oh, having issues here.
Say, Matt, it's maybe I should ask this question a little bit earlier, but why does that chicken breast seem to feel kind of slimy, but it really doesn't smell bad?
Oh, that's a good one. Whenever you're cooking with chicken, first thing you want to do is start rinsing it off. And when you start rinsing it off, you're going to feel whether or not it's slimy. If it is slimy after you rinse it off, that means something's not good with it. Because when it's getting washed off, excuse me, it's going to get rid of a lot of that extra little chicken sliminess. That's okay, because that's just part of the chicken. But
So that initial sliminess, when you pull it off the package, you can rinse that off and it should kind of go away, right?
yes, and it
Okay.
should go away. But if it doesn't, sorry, I got my hot stuff over here I'm putting in the sink. But if it does not go away, that's a no-go. That's a no bueno. Excuse me one second. I'm getting my strainer over here. I'm going to put my pasta in the strainer as my cheese and everything's melting over here on the chicken parm. I had a slight issue taking it out. It actually rotated upside down on me. So unfortunately, it did flip on me, and it had that instant situation, unfortunately.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And also about that chicken sliminess, you can kind of boil it off too if you don't pre-wash your chicken, or you can also use a little bit of lime juice to remove it too, if you
Yes.
really don't like it in your chicken. And lime juice is probably one of the most effective ways. And chicken has a smell, so like if it doesn't smell like it normally does, you know it's bad. Once I opened a package and I can't see anything.
Yeah.
And I smelled it and I went, yeah, we're not cooking this tonight, and just tossed it. So sometimes, like, even if the package says it's in the best by date, but it ends up not, you can literally smell it. It'll smell like trash.
Oh,
Yeah.
It
yeah.
won't it won't smell like usually chicken has it's like kind of like if you like have turkey ham, like a strong turkey ham,
Yep.
but if it's not good, it's more like a trash, like if there's trash, and then okay, that's not my chicken. That's one of the ways, at least I learned, that you can't cook the chicken.
Yep.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Using
That's right.
your nose is an excellent way to tell about the freshness of stuff.
Yep. Now, if you give me one second, I'm gonna having issues with my burner here. I forgot it's on. I'll have to let it do its thing for a minute. But what I know now is that on the chicken, a big key is to rinse it off at all possible.
Mhm.
So after that too, also, Alan, you can also push your finger on it and feel, because your chicken should be a rubbery kind of feeling before it's cooked, and you can push and press on it, and it should just bounce back like normal. But if you push on it and happen to feel that it's got an indentation to it, that's also not a good thing. That also means that that chicken is not something you want to be having on your plate. So also keep that in mind as well. So now I have my chicken parm here, and I'm going to come over and get my stir and take some of the pasta out, and I'm going to put some sauce onto the pasta to complete my dish.
Now you made enough for all of us, correct?
Of course, I'm going to mail a noodle to everybody.
I'll be expecting my FoodX package any minute, right? In Florida.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you're in
Matt,
Florida, you know what's up.
I bet it
Yeah.
smells great over there.
Oh,
I
I
bet
know.
it does.
I
I
made
can't tell.
ravioli.
I burnt my nose off. I don't know what it smells like.
I keep
Yeah, if y'all wanna
asking
come
our
over.
producer for smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision. That's right. You got Wonka-vision. Now I'm going to come over back to the stove and finalize by pouring some sauce onto my pasta. If I remember correctly, yep, right there. Got my stuff here. And I've got to get the spoon in the right spot because this one here that I'm using, I thought it'd be really good today. And I tried something that didn't really work. So now
I
it's a
always
wooden one.
like to work over a tray in case I make a mistake. It's a
Yeah.
little easier to clean up that way.
Yep, absolutely. And that's what I'm doing right now is headed over my pot or my pan, excuse me, as I was doing it. So now what I have ultimately is, again, doing my best here because I had a slight issue with the chicken coming off because it was stuck a little bit, is my chicken Parmesan. So on the left side of the stove here, I have my chicken Parmesan with a little bit of penne pasta with some sauce on it. And
Is this
because
our
of the
finished project and product?
finished product, yes. And finished
Oh.
product also requires another drink of a beverage.
Oh,
I'm burning
that
up in here.
sounds wonderful.
Thank you. And I'm very grateful to be able to do this. And I'm no Gordon Ramsay or anything, but I'm trying my best. So yeah, that's really good. So next I'm gonna do is pour myself a little more on the wine. So grab the neck. Because another thing with the wine is you need to make sure that your wine glass is for the wine you're drinking. Wine actually does have glasses designed for. So each one of your glasses for a wine is going to be different for the size. So right now I have a wine glass that's shaped more of a neutral for my wine tastings I would do. So it's got a little more bulb to it and it's taller. But if I'm drinking, say, a dark wine like a Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot, dark rich, then I want to have a more bulbous, larger bowl feeling wine glass is going to have a little more rim. The rim of the glass is actually going to shrink back in. I
Is
could
there
have
a reason for these different shapes and sizes of glasses?
Yes, because of how the wine itself is going to open up within it, as well as how it tastes. And I never knew this, and I always thought it was a fake thing about having different glasses. And it's like, oh, you just need to buy, they just want you to spend money on glasses.
Yeah.
Well, I went through a wine tasting on with somebody, and they had 5 glasses, different designs of the glass, and it was all different fills on the glass, and I thought it was all different wines we were doing of white wine, and it was tasted everything differently in each one, and there was one glass that tasted the best on, and so many different flavors on it. Some it felt like it was a dull wine, others were too rich and sweet, and ultimately found out it was the same wine poured in every glass.
The same wine, just the different shape of glass made it taste different. How
Yep.
interesting. I never knew that.
Yes, it blew my mind, and I said, "There's no way." And after that, I was like, "Yep." I did a lot more research. There's a company called Riedel or Riedel. I can't remember how you pronounce it, but it's Ridel or Reidel.
Riedel. Mhm.
Okay, and that is actually where you can get glasses all over the premises of what you're needing for glassware. It is so wonderful of all the glasses, and I would have 4, 5, or 6 different styles of wine glasses for different wines that I would be drinking for my wine tastings.
They actually make those glasses actually make the wine taste even better. They're amazing.
Yep, they are. Absolutely amazing. So now what I'm going to try to do is cut into this and see if it's any good. Now, that's been resting and
You're the
everything.
one
All
that
of it,
gets the
stuff.
sample, darn.
Yeah, I'm trying not to make too much of a mess. So I'm going to cut.
Before we leave today, does anyone have any questions for Matt?
This is Lindsay. I have a question.
Yes, Lindsay.
Hey, Matt, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. I was wondering, well, first of all, do you deliver?
I love it.
I would love to try some of this. This sounds amazing. But I'm also wondering because I've heard this before, and I love what you were saying that try what works for you. Like just because it says it's supposed to be a certain way doesn't mean it has to be that way.
Absolutely.
But is it true that when they say like, you always hear them in movies, should I bring red or white wine? Is that supposed to correlate to if it's red meat, red wine, white meat, white wine, or is that not always true?
Absolutely, very much true to it. That you need to know what is being fed to you.
Okay.
Chicken, duck. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because my battery and my sunglass Bose speakers is dying down. So, So really quickly, yes, on a chicken, duck, turkey richness, typically you're going to find a more vibrant acidic wine to be better. Pinot Noir, Gamay, Gamay, Barbera is actually the name of it. So like if you're old enough and you remember Hanna-Barbera, cartoons and stuff,
Cartoon, yes.
Yeah.
it actually says Barbera. Another one is if you talk more of a dry Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin Blanc, really great white wines for the chicken. When you get to the seafood is all around the board. It's pretty much neutral. You can put anything you want with it.
Mm.
Especially if it's really good, if it's in the same region it is caught. So like if you have Chilean sea bass and you buy a Chilean wine, a design of a Chilean wine, then you're going to have a blazing awesome flavor.
Interesting.
And so a big one too is when you get to the beef level, beef, lamb, goat, you're going to have a flavor that you don't want to go acidic with because it's going to kind of copy it out. You want something that's really going to flow with it. So like a Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, my favorite, say Bordeaux from Bordeaux, France. One that number one is the Cabernet Sauvignon. You can also use the father of Cabernet Sauvignon is a Cabernet Franc, and the mother is a Sauvignon Blanc. And so you can use a Cabernet Franc wine. You can use Chardonnays that are really good with beef. But there's two different styles of Chardonnay that you want to watch out for. Is if you either have one that's oak aged or it's stainless aged, as in they didn't put it in barrels at all. It's just aged in stainless steel drums. And so you don't have that oaky, rich, more earthy note to it. And so you have a different flavor change. And so you have to say, what do you want to try? And you may bring 2 bottles of wine. You may try a sparkling wine, such as one's from Champagne, a Prosecco, or a Cava, which is from the Spanish and some Italian regions, mostly Spain, CABA. And it's a more dry and more flavorful wine than Prosecco. Other ones you can get to a port wines more for dessert. A port wine is a fortified wine from Porto, Portugal, excuse me. And it's usually around the 18 to 22% alcohol range because they fortify it with whiskey, or no, sorry, rephrase, other alcoholic beverages of brandy or cognac from specific area of cognac, sherry. Those are all brandy. Those are all liquors or alcohols made with grapes, and so they blend it in with the wines and help age it up. And then finally, for you super sweeties, you got to love dessert wines. You can have frozen grapes, ice wines as they call them. You can have other dessert wines in there where you have a small amount of them and they're just beyond super rich with your dessert. Super small goes a long way of how sugary it is, of the sweetness. So those are good things too if you like ice wine to pick out. So those are all, I mean, there's so many options out there. I have a book that, I mean, if you're a Harry Potter reader, I know, Lindsay.
You know me so well.
One of the books on wine that I have is probably in Braille would be like 12 volumes because of how thick it is.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And also some of the Missouri wines are pretty sweet, like the sweet white and the velvet red. If you really like sweets, I'm not a sweet wine girl for like food wine, like for dinner and stuff. But I really like my fortified wines.
Yes. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry.
No problem.
My headphones are dying, so I need to grab. So I don't know where my phone just went. It fell over.
I think your phone just fell over. I'm not sure what we're looking at, but it's not what we were looking at before.
Oh, there it is.
Matt,
I felt it.
I'd like to thank you very much. That was really enlightening and entertaining. I didn't know a lot of that stuff about wine.
Thank you. And I tried my best, so I hope it did okay for people and they weren't aggravated. So
you did absolutely spectacular.
Did great
I'd
job.
also like to thank those of you in our audience for joining us on the Cooking Without Looking Chicken Parm and Wine Pairing Edition. If you'd like today's recipe, as well as any of our past recipes, please go to our website at www.cookingwithoutlookingtv.wordpress.com. And if you'd like to enjoy today's show or past shows, please go to our Cooking Without Looking YouTube channel. And also, did you know that if you teach students who are blind or partially sighted, they can use any of our shows for your students at no charge? Many teachers around the country and 75 different countries around the world now use our Cooking Without Looking TV show to teach their students. And viewers can also check out our Cooking Without Looking podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere where you get your favorite podcasts. We're also available on all Alexa-enabled devices and on Victor readers. And if our viewers would like to donate to our Vision World Foundation to help us on our mission to change the way we see blindness, they can go to our website at www.cookingwithoutlookingtv.wordpress.com and click on the link at the top of the page. Or for more information, you can call area code 305-200-9104. And everyone can look for our next show in December. And thank you so much again for joining us today on Cooking Without Looking. I'm Alan Preston, and on behalf of Renee Rentmeester, our producer, and Matt Schumacher, and all of us on the Cooking Without Looking TV show and Vision World Foundation, thank you so much for joining us today. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank you
Bye.
very, very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Princess is waiting for their food, okay?
Thanks,
Yes.
Matt.
Thank you,
Mhm.
PS on the way.